getting out of debt. Let's talk about it. Credit cards. If you have $200 in the bank and you open up a new credit card with a limit of $1,000, how much money do you have? You have $200. You have $200 in the bank, not $1,200. This is a major mistake, a massive misconception that I had growing up when I started with credit cards. I would get these new limits and I would get super excited and like, oh, I got this money. And I would make the massive mistake into thinking or feeling like that money was mine. Let me tell you something. And if you forget absolutely everything in this video, if you remember nothing, get this. In 95 or more % of every single conceivable situation, debt with interest is the worst thing you can possibly have for financial freedom. Let me say that again. In 95 or more % of every single situation, debt with interest is the worst thing you can possibly have for financial freedom. Let me tell you why. Let me start off by telling you what the interest is. The bank will look at the interest and say that whatever loan we give you, I'm going to charge you a % of what I gave you. So if I gave you $100 and I said, I'm going to charge you 20%, you are going to end up at least owing me $20 out of that $100 that I gave you. You are going to have to give me $120, but you're giving it to me in small, easy payments. $1 a month, but slowly but surely we lose track of how much money we've actually spent. And I'm only talking about 100. Most people are thousands of dollars in debt. If you're anything like me, over $100,000 in debt. Tip 1, when managing a credit card. If you're anything like I was, this is going to sound crazy, but listen closely. If you owe any % on the credit card at the end of the month, that is unacceptable. Make sure your credit cards are always at 0. Never allow yourself to slip into the idea that, oh, I only owe 5% on my credit cards by the end of the month. That's awful. Listen to me clearly. If you are anywhere above 0%, there's work to be done. That's extra money that you're paying for anything. This is the modern style of slavery, I promise you. Unless you're in that tiny % that I'm mentioning where debt can actually be a good thing. And the only situations where they're a good thing is when you're actually turning a profit with that debt. Let's say you bought a building, you bought a home, and you are renting out that home, and you're actually getting a net positive from that investment, then that loan makes perfect sense. You're making money from it as long as there's a reasonable trajectory. Make sure you close out every single month, never owing any money on your credit cards. Some ways to do this: automatic payments, or better yet, so those payments don't end up sneaking up on you if you're strapped for cash, is to treat the credit card like a debit card. And the closest way to get to that is to constantly pay off the card. So as soon as you use it, pay it off that same day if you can, or wait for it to process and check the next day and pay it right off so you can see where your money is going. Now, not everything is entirely that straightforward if you're already heavily in debt. I know that, I understand that. And you have to juggle and strategize which cards you're offloading expenses to based off of your expenses and when that card is due for payment. And if you want some additional strategies on how to navigate that until you're stable enough to consistently put on things like auto payment, or to treat your card entirely like a debit card without doing credit card strategies, DM me, drop a comment below, and let me know if you'd like to hear a video about that or do some personal consultation. Remember, interest is awful. If you're religious, interest is the devil. Stay away from it. Do not get anything that accrues interest. Save up that money and invest things on cash. Now, credit cards can be useful. I use credit cards every single day because if you use credit cards, you can get benefits and you can also avoid foreign transaction fees. I've been traveling for the last 10 months. I haven't lived in the US, and otherwise, if I use my debit card, I get charged for it. The credit card makes it free, and then I get additional points. So credit cards can be lovely. In 2019, I made nearly $8,000 off of credit card bonuses. If you're interested in credit card hacks, let me know and I can make a video about that. Now, anytime you feel the need to incur a debt with interest, ask if you really need that thing or if you can wait to make that purchase. If you've listened to any one of Warren Buffett's speeches or read any of his books, there's a recurring theme. It's patience and waiting. And oftentimes we take out loans for certain things because we're impatient and we need it now. We need to buy it now. We don't actually have the money for it. There is an undeniable, incredible power to being able to buy something cash. It means you owe no one. It means you own the property outright and that you can actually sell it. It means that you can refurbish it and possibly make a profit off of that purchase. You are the owner. And that is one of the major things that most of us do not see in ourselves and do not make actions towards being able to realize these things for ourselves, is being the owner. Break away from these shackles and be the owner. Buy things cash or get 0% interest and make sure you pay it off early. I'm not saying loans are awful. I'm saying interest is awful. Stay away from interest. So now that we've got staying away from interest-based debt, let's actually talk about getting out of debt. And we're going to implement the snowball effect on these payments. And what the snowball effect is taking the payments that you're routing to a specific debt, and as soon as that debt is paid off, you combine it with the amount that you're paying on your current debt, and now they team up. And then as soon as this debt is paid off, you team up on this one, and then you team up on the next one, and then so on and so forth until those debts are being paid off rapidly. Two major considerations that I use for paying off debt. One is how much is owed, and then two is the amount of interest on that loan. You often want to go for the lowest hanging fruit, specifically meaning if there is a loan that you only owe a few $100s on, or something that can be paid off in a few months, between 3 to 6 months, that is low hanging fruit. So let's say you owe $400 on something with a 10% interest, but then you owe $500 on something with a 24% interest. Even though the $500 is greater than the $400, the interest is so much higher. You're actually paying significantly more money if you drag this out versus the $400. Take the interest into account. You want to focus on high interest, but if it's low-hanging fruit and you can pay it off quickly, then that means you can begin or continue that snowball effect much faster and redirect it. We need to come together and focus our minds and realize and truly believe and live by the notion that interest-based debt is horrible for our freedom. It is the primary way to stay poor and the primary way to continue struggling financially and wondering where all your money went. And especially if you came from a place like I did, there's even more passion behind this. And I'm even more serious because I know our minds are trained this way. This is a poor person's mentality, to look at this money, this free money that isn't ours, and trick ourselves or fool ourselves into believing it is ours. It is not ours. There are invisible shackles. Stay away from it. As soon as you pay it off, stay away from it. And I really do hope from the bottom of my heart that this turns out to be transformative and helpful for you or someone that you may know. So please don't just leave it with yourself. Share this information. I really do truly believe that as many people as possible need to know this information, need to have this information, and we need to share this information with each other so that we're empowering ourselves and we're empowering our neighbors and we're empowering our circles. And make sure you subscribe because I have a lot more information coming your way. Stay blessed, and I'll see you next week.